Facebook, YouTube. How y'all doing out there, man? It's Coach Jay. I hope you are enjoying your Sunday. I was supposed to go live at like 4 p.m., but I decided I wanted to go ahead and come live now and just chat with you all for a little bit and talk about what's on my mind as it relates to families. I know I'm competing with your Sunday afternoon and competing with the playoffs, but it's all good. That's the power of social media. Somebody will go back and watch the replay. Somebody will be able to catch the live right now. So if you're tuning in on Facebook, YouTube, please hit like, please hit share, please hit the notification bell on YouTube and subscribe. YouTube channel Perspective with Coach Jay. But I wanted to come on here just for a moment and just talk about families. I'm always looking for ways to sort of like identify solutions to some of the issues that we have going on in society, especially as it relates to violence, particularly violence that impacts young people, violence that we see in our community at the hands of young people. Is always an area that impacts my heart because of my work, because of my purpose, and because of my calling. And so every time I, think about a solution, think about ways that we can address some of the issues in our world, I always land back to families. I always land back to families. I don't care if it's something that I'm doing on my own as it relates to research or if it's something that I'm praying about. I always land back on families. Um, and then here in Texas, just on yesterday, another mass shooting at an outlet mall, and then today there was another incident. They don't quite have all the information on that yet, but another incident where many lives were taken, and so it always pull at my heartstrings when we see these violent acts over and over and over again. And we always ask, I said, what can we do? What can we do? Immediately we start talking about gun laws and changes to the gun laws. And I agree, we got to do something as it relates to the gun laws. However, that's a bigger like political issue that has to come to fruition and has to be addressed on a much larger scale. And so I'm always asking myself, what can we do in the immediate? Like, what can we do in the now moment to begin to make some changes for the greater good of our society, for the greater good of our children, for the greater good of our families? And again, I always land back on the family. So let's talk about the family. I just went to the dictionary just to pull, what is the definition of a family? And in a lot of cases, I found traditional information, which we all know families look different, families are set up differently, and so I'm just reading a very traditional definition, and then I'm gonna read a more general definition of what a family is. And so basically, a family is a basic unit in society. Society traditionally consisting of two parents rearing or raising their children. And we know we have families now that are not two parent households. We have families where children are, adopted, children are in foster care. And then another definition is a group of people united by certain convictions or common affiliation. People create their families. People find, other people that they have common interests, common affiliation, common ground with, and those individuals become their family. And so family is not only about blood. Family is about those individuals that you can connect with, that have like interests, commonalities, that you gel with, that you vibe with, that that become your family, even in addition to your blood family. We see that when it comes to our children and how they get older, and the friends and the cliques and the social aspects of life begins to pull at them, and it pulls them in another direction. And some young people search for family even outside of their family. They're still looking for family, whether it's their values and things that they believe may be different from their family. And so they start looking for those commonalities. And so we have to be aware of all this, especially for parents who are raising teenagers. You have to be aware that, even though your child, your son, your daughter, or whatever the case may be, is a part of your family, you have to make sure that they feel welcome, they feel included, they have a voice, so that they will not go out and look for family outside of the home. And they still may, however, you don't want them to connect with the wrong individuals, that they could be drafted into a family that does not benefit them in their now or also in their future. And so, as a parent, we definitely want to be aware of that. And so, when I talk about like how can we solve problems, how can we be a solution in the world, and I always land back on families, because when you think about some of the things that go on in the world, whether it's negative or positive, most of the impact can occur by an individual or a group of individuals. And so I asked myself, okay, well, where do individuals come from, right? Where do individuals come from? Well, individuals typically come from families. Typically come from families, right? I know for me, I came from a two-parent household, and was brought up a certain way with certain morals, certain values, certain ethics, certain beliefs. And then I went out into the world as a representative, not only of me, but also of my family. But at the same time, I was a representative of me as an individual, and then of my family. And so what I took into the world was a lot that I had learned from the family, right? A lot of things that I had learned in terms of work ethic, in terms of, how to contribute to society based on the lens in which my family looked from. And I'm not saying that every child that is raised in a good family is going to be a productive citizen. And I'm not saying that every child that is raised in a not so good environment is going to be an unproductive citizen, because things happen and the tides can swing either way. However, I am grateful and thankful for the foundation that I had and the upbringing that I had, because it prepared me for the world that was waiting on me. It prepared me for work. It prepared me for community. It prepared me for family. It prepared me to live in a world outside of what was normal for me. I was raised in a rural area, but because of my upbringing, I've been able to survive anywhere. Some of the things that I was grounded in as a child has been able to be replicated, all across the world and even outside of the U.S. And so I'm thankful for my upbringing. But let me get back to what I was saying about how individuals come out of families. And so if individuals come out of families, where can we make the greatest impact? Can we make great impact when people become adults, or can we make the most impact when children are in the home, or whether they're in a foster home, whether they're in a transition home, or whether they're in a home with one parent, or whether they're in a home with both parents? When do we have the opportunity to make the most impact on our children so that they can live a productive life? Not a mistake-free life. I'm not saying that they need to live a mistake-free life, but what I'm saying is, what period of time do we have as parents, as aunts, uncles, community leaders, to make the most impact on the child so that they can have a productive life? I believe it's when they're in the home, or when they're at that age to where they're still living in a environment to where they're not the adult. That could be from birth to 18. It could be particularly from birth to 18. Of course, there's circumstances where young people, end up in the, the system. They end up in state's custody. They may be in a foster home or transitional living home, where the greatest attempt is to replicate a family and provide them what it is that they need to still have their emotions and needs met from a family construct standpoint. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. However, there still is some level of attempt to give them some sense of normalcy as it relates to family. And so, with that being said, I believe that there are certain things that we as parents, as adults, need to consider at home. You know, you may say, well, okay, well, I still have a child at home. I have a 10-year old, I have a 5-year old. And so when you look at the landscape of the world, your conversation about the woes and the great things that are happening in the world, they're gonna have to be different. Like things are moving so quick, the pace is so fast to the point to where the conversation, sort of like things you would typically hide from your child or things that you would typically shelter your child from, we have to start having those conversations much, much, much more in advance. I was talking to my wife the other day, and we were talking about, having a further conversation with our child about like school violence, about threats on campus and things of that nature. Like, although the school has policy in place, they run some drills to keep the kids safe, how to shelter in place, and things of that nature. We were talking about conversations that we need to have to deepen the level of awareness to what do those things look like, the level of impact they can have on a child. We talk about the things that come on the news in terms of violence, because we want to be ahead of the game. We don't want to be reactive. We want to be proactive, and we want to be the leading voice above and beyond TikTok, above and beyond YouTube, above and beyond the peers. And so we can't, say, okay, well, we don't think they should talk about that. It's too early to have conversations about that. No, if it is happening in the world that they live in, I would recommend that you consider having a conversation about it. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to recommend that you consider having a conversation about it, whether it's the sex conversation, the drug conversation, the violent conversation, the friend conversation, the social media conversation. Have the conversations and you be in control of the narrative, versus you know the influence outside of home being in control of the narrative. And so again, I encourage you to not be afraid to have those conversations, because I guarantee you that between the breaks at school, the bus ride, the bus stop, and the other mediums in which young people communicate these days, beginning at probably about 7, 8 years old, it's some stuff been discussed that you probably be like, wow, I can't believe that. Absolutely. It's absolutely being talked about. And so that's why we don't, our language when we're having a conversation with our 10-year-old may be specific to a 10-year-old. Of course, our language is, because we want to communicate on the level that he's able to understand what we're talking about, perceive what we're talking about, and then also digest what we're talking about because of application. And so, again, I believe that our greatest opportunity is definitely to make impact at the family level, at the really grassroots level, at really the basic level. And again, we know family look different for a lot of different people, and so I want to encourage even the single parents. If the mother lives in another location or the father lives in another location, please, take the opportunity to make sure that the teamwork from the two adults is so tight that the child benefits as if both parents were in the home. If you're a dad and you don't live with, your child, let your communication with your child be so trump tight the way your child feel like your presence is as if you're in the home. Don't treat it as if, I pay child support, that's my due diligence as a father, or I pay child support, that's my due diligence as a mother. No, go above and beyond that and still act as if you were still in that home. Would you pick your child up from school if needed? Absolutely, you would. Would you make sure they had food? Absolutely, you would. Would you take some up to the school if they needed and called? Absolutely, you would. So I think sometimes, maybe in those situations, you get sort of like disconnected or disassociated with the role. And because you're outside of the home in your location, it's like, well, I can't, that ain't my responsibility to do, because I pay the child support and I got visitation on this day or that day. And even when it comes to that, the laws around that, like, like really, I could, unless there's some kind of conflict, in my opinion, I think parents should be able to see their child whenever they want. I don't think the government, should have to make a parent see their children or their child. I get the 50-50 time and all of that. I get all of that. I understand why that is in play. However, what I'm saying is that if we want to move the needle, if we want to see change, then we have to start going above and beyond and investing more in our families. And I was going to say invest more in our communities. However, if we invest in our families, we are investing in our communities, no matter what the family structure look like. If we are investing in our families, we are investing in our community, right? If we're investing in our families, we are investing in our communities. And so this is what I think, based on my years of experience, just based on some research, is some things that should show up, or some things that young people should get from that family structure is emotional support. You know, our children should feel as though they are supported emotionally. What do you mean? They should be able to cry. They should be able to be sad. They should be able to be angry. They should be able to be happy. They should be able to be filled with joy without judgment. They should be in an environment to where they feel safe emotionally, to talk about what they're feeling, to talk about what's on their mind, so that we can cultivate emotionally strong and emotionally transparent young people. And so again, that element should definitely show up in the home. Emotional support. And as a parent, if you have struggled in your childhood with receiving emotional support, don't let that impact your inability to show and display emotional support. Please get the help that you need within yourself so that you can offer emotional support in the family. A lot of times, as adults, sometimes we make excuses. Well, I didn't have it growing up, and it's hard for me to show it, it's hard for me to display it. Well, your child needs it. And so, with that being said, invest in yourself and go to therapy so that you can then invest that back into your family, the emotional support that not only your children need, but your spouse or your mate may need. So let's not make excuses of, I didn't have it as a child. A lot of people didn't have it. A lot of people didn't have it. And I get that. I understand that. I respect that. However, I just would like to push us to just like say, okay, if we're tired of the shootings, if we're tired of the bullying at school, if we're tired of the discrimination, the racism, all of the issues that we wake up on a day-to-day basis and we're tired of, then we have to put measures in place to start somewhere to curb it, to bring about change, right? And so again, this is an area that I feel strongly that we can make impact and maximize what our communities look like, starting in the home, starting with the family, no matter what that family structure look like. So again, emotional support needs to be present. And then financial support. Financial support goes back to the conversation we were talking about with child support. I know a lot of people don't like it, but every parent that is, able-bodied enough to bring a child in the world, that parent need to take care of that child. Should the government have to tell you that? No, the government shouldn't. But the government is the government, so the government has to tell some people to do X, Y, and Z and pay X, Y, and Z in order to support their children. However, that is one of the basic things that children need: financial support. Now, financial support doesn't mean that it's Range Rovers, unlimited video games, the latest greatest of this, the latest greatest of that. That is not what financial support means. And financial support it vary. It could look different for everybody. For some people, financial support could be very entry level, very basic, taking care of the necessary things. And then for other people, it could be, hey, it could be the top of the line, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, financial support is another area that children need in the home. And so we have emotional support, we have financial support, because we want basic needs to be met as it relates to children, and we want them to be able to earn things in the home. It's great, it's awesome, for my child to come to me and say, "Hey, Dad, I would like to get a new controller for my game." Okay, how much is it? It's $35. Okay, boom. How can you earn the $35? Well, I can do X, Y, and Z and earn the $35. Okay, go ahead and do X, Y, and Z, and then we'll get that new controller that you want. Right? That's financial support, and he's learning a life skill. He's learning a lot of lessons, some financial lessons, while he's also being financially supported to get what he wants. I could have easily said, "Sure, here's the 35. Go ahead and get the controller." But I like to teach lessons. I think every moment is an opportunity to teach a lesson. So I'm a teacher and a coach at heart, and so every moment is an opportunity to teach a lesson. So I'm always teaching when it comes to the way that me and my son interact. So we got emotional support, financial support, and then we got social support. What do you mean social support? What I mean by social support is that, the way we interact with our children should should give them the capacity to go out and interact with others, right? The way we interact in the home with our children, it should give our children the capacity to go out and interact with others. What do you mean? Well, if in the home, we have conversations often, we sit down often, we watch TV together, we hang out, we do fun things together. We call and talk to grandpa, grandma, whatever the case. All that's a part of socialization. We go to the movies, we say hi and bye. We communicate with a certain level of voice tone, things of that nature. All of that's going to show up in your child's life when they leave outside the home and they go socialize. And so again, what do you think is going to happen to a child if they are seeing nothing but violence at home, nothing but yelling at home, nothing but frustration at home, nothing but anxiety at home? What do you think they're going to do when they leave home? They're going to leave home and they're probably going to display some of that behavior that they see at home, because it's all a part of socialization. In the community that they live in, if they learn to survive amongst violence, then they'll go out and be violent. The possibility is there. I'm not saying it's a catch all, end all, be all, but the possibility is there, even with, being raised in an environment where it's a lot of instability and a lot of anger, a lot of lashing out. It will impact them on some level. And so socialization, how we socialize as a family, is typically how our kids are going to go out and socialize at school, how they're going to interact with teachers. If they have a positive relationship with you as a parent, as an adult, then more than likely they're going to know how to go out and interact and have positive relationships with adults at school, teachers and principals and, people in the community, bus drivers, whoever the case may be. One thing I always have to just like take deep breaths behind is if I see a child in the store being disrespectful, at least what I call being disrespectful, and not communicating with their parents in the way that I communicate with my son and how I communicate with my parents. It always throws me for a loop. And I'm always like, wow, never in a million years, would that happen in my house or in the house that I grew up in. To each his own. However, again, the thing about that is, if as an adult you allow it to happen, just know when they go outside the home, it's gonna happen then. And so they could put themselves in a situation where it draws negative attention and even consequences that don't have to be if we just look at the home environment differently, and how the home environment can really impact the larger society, especially when we're sending our kids out, especially as they get older. to where then they have the ability to be responsible for their own life from an interdependent standpoint. And then we have modeling, right? Is that don't only do what I say, do what I do. How do I conduct myself in the home? How do I communicate with those that I say I love? How do I show up? How do I get things done in the home? Am I timely? Am I punctual? Um, do I take care of the things that I need to take care of? Do I show the level of support that I ask for from others around me? So that's what modeling is about, right? Am I respectful? Do my child see me yelling on the phone if I'm talking to my parents and they know I'm talking to my parents? Or, do they see me yelling with my spouse when, there's a situation going on? So again, that socialization and modeling sort of kind of goes hand in hand. But again, the more we can perfect these things in the home environment, and when I say perfect them, I don't mean we have to be perfect, but just like striving every day and being conscious and being intentional about the home environment being so effective and so geared towards positive outcomes. Of course, you want the child to be a child. You want them to be age appropriate, right? I'm not saying they got to be little robots. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the home structure should be conducive to cultivating great individuals, because you may have more than one child, but they all can be great individuals because of the way you parent them, because of the things that you put in place. And again, you can do it all right and they still go out, right, and make bad decisions, make bad choices. And guess what? That's okay. We still have to do our part as parents. We can't assume, well, I ain't gonna teach them because they're gonna go out there and make bad decisions anyway. We can't take that approach. That's not the approach we want to take. And then the last one is a sense of fulfillment, right? It's like I want to be the one to validate my son more than anything. I want him to in the home feel like he is the greatest. I want him in the home to feel like he is the best. Of course, we're not going to give him false sense of hope about being the best or being the greatest or whatever the case may be. We're going to make sure that we have the right conversations about what the best looks like. And, when you showed up this way, that was your best. Or when you showed up that way, that was your best. But we want them to feel fulfilled in the home. We want them to feel very purposeful in the home, very included in the home. And so again, I believe that if we look at the greater world and we continue to see issues and areas that we don't like, that we feel like need to change, that we don't agree with, then consider the home. If you don't have a family, what family can you impact? What do you have a brother that you can help with his family? Do you have a cousin that you can help with his or her family if you don't have your own family? But we gotta get to a place to where we're also individually connected to our individual purpose, that the way that we show up makes impact. There's not one, two, or three people that is supposed to make impact in life. All of us was created for a purpose and created to make impact, big impact, not little impact, but big impact. And I believe that the more impact we make in the home, the greater impact we can make out of the home. It would be very hypocritical to make impact out of the home and not make impact at home. And I'm not perfect at this by any stretch of the imagination, especially when it comes to lifting up all family. It's hard. You got your job, you got your career, you got your own family, you got this and you got that you're committed to. You only have 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, 365, 12 months in a year to try to get this stuff done. However, we got to be more intentional about really bringing about change in the world. I believe God gave us dominion over the earth for a reason. We have the power to make the change. If we believe the government has the power to make the change, then surely we believe as individuals that we can make the change as well. I believe in the government, but I also believe in me. And I believe in the abilities that I have, the consciousness that I have, the heart that I have, the love that I have for people, and the love that I have for this world. I believe so much in that in me, and because of who is in me and what is in me, that I can make just as much impact as the government can make. I may not have the resources that the government has, the pull that the government has, but I believe I can make just as much impact. And I hope that you will begin to believe the same about yourself. So if you have a family, please take that role serious, whether your role is mother, father, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, whatever your role is in the family, take it serious and invest in your family. When you look at the things in the community again that you don't agree with, that you wish were different, at least make sure that they don't show up in your family. And that, I mean, that would be a great first step. At least make sure they don't show up in your family. If it's financial or fiscal irresponsibility, then make sure it doesn't show up in your family. Make sure everybody has life insurance. Make sure those that may, desire employment, if you understand how to get employment, help them get employed. Those who desire to be educated, if you've obtained your college degree, help them get in school. Help them fill out the FAFSA or whatever the case may be. But I believe that we all have a responsibility and a role to play in making this world a better place. And I believe that we can all start with our individual families. And again, it may not be your blood relatives, but it could be a group of individuals that share the same common interests, the same commonalities, the same mindset. And so, whoever you deem your family to be, I hope that your family pours into you and lifts you up and hold you accountable to being great, just as you hold yourself accountable to being great. Listen, that's all I have for you today, man. Again, if you're coming back, watching this, catching the replay, please share it with somebody. I'm gonna continue to pop up and go live, whether I'm talking to one person or nobody, because the message is still the same. Y'all take care, man. Enjoy your Sunday. I hope your favorite team win today. Mine lost on last night, but we'll see what they do on tomorrow. But y'all have a safe or blessed week. Please remain aware. Don't take for granted that you can just go to the grocery store and make it back home. Don't take that for granted. I wish we could, but it just seemed like as time goes along, going to the grocery store has to be a little more thought out. Going to put gas in your car has to be a little more thought out, a little more planned out. So please be safe. Please take care of yourself. Peace out, Coach Day Gone.